Welcome back to r/Neighbors from Hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors, and if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, "Neighbor said I cannot go outside when she is outside because I am spying on her." So this has been going on for a year now. I have lived in my home for about 7 years but have owned it since the late 90s. I used to rent it out before I moved in. Back when it was a rental, my neighbor put up a waist-high picket fence in the front of our adjoining properties. It comes over on my side of the property a little under a foot. When I moved in, I honestly didn't care much as we got along relatively well and I try to be peaceful with my neighbors. Last year, she is having all her fencing replaced as the old one is falling apart. I see her outside and ask if we can put the fence that is on my side down the actual property line, and she completely lost her mind on me. The way she reacted, you would think I reached across and slapped her. I did not engage and immediately called a survey company and had them out the next day. She did as well. Both came back a week or so later confirming the fence was on my side. About a week after that, code enforcement showed up regarding a house under construction across the street from me, completely unrelated to the fence or anything. He parked in front of my house and was standing in my yard to take pictures of the house across the street. I came outside not knowing who he was and spoke with him. Once I knew what he was doing, I came back inside. As soon as he left, she came outside screaming obscenities at the top of her lungs for calling code on her. I will admit I lost my temper and come outside and we had a screaming match. I called her a stupid cow and a bunch of other choice words. 20 minutes later, the police show up and she claimed I just started screaming at her for no reason and she was in fear for her life. What she didn't know is I have 2 cameras in my front yard and the entire exchange was caught as she was in front of my house when she lost her mind. I showed it to the police and they left quite irritated with her. The biggest mistake I made was posting about it on my Facebook group, which is quite large and are members of our community. She called the cops on me again for cyberbullying and inciting threats or something like that, so to make everyone happy, I deleted the post. She called the police on me a 3rd time a few months later for cyberbullying again, though I'm not sure what for as I hadn't posted anything else. The cops were confused as well and they left. A few months later I am on my porch having a cigarette and she's in her van, stops in front of my house, rolls down her window, calling me a stupid gay, waves her arms at me and takes off. Again, I caught it on camera. So I figured, screw it, and posted the video to my group. Sure enough, she calls the police again, though this time they turn on her after I show them the footage and tell her she needs to leave me alone. She got pissed and started yelling at the police. They said if she doesn't calm down, she was going to be arrested. I am gay, by the way, and live with my boyfriend of 6 years. A month or so later, I am having a tree trimmed on my other neighbor's side who we get along with, and she called code enforcement trying to say I did it without a permit. Got thrown out as it was a camper tree. She called the police again and when they showed up she wouldn't answer the door. Me nor the police still have no idea what that call was about. Few weeks later, a detective comes by my house saying she has been investigating this case and I have done nothing criminally wrong and she is going to speak with my neighbor to inform her of just that and to leave me alone. My neighbor loses her mind on the detective. Keep in mind I have never once called the police on her, code enforcement, etc. Week after that she installs Nest Google cams pointed right at my front door and windows mounted to a pole. Nothing I can do about it as in Florida there is no expectation of privacy at the front of your house and neighbors can mount cameras at you. About 2 months ago someone broke into my storage and stole all my Roundup. I checked my cameras but unfortunately it is too dark outside so all you can see is someone with a flashlight over my neighbor's fence while someone else is rummaging around in my storage. I have since upgraded to night vision cameras. At this point I am getting tired of this, but I go over and speak with her in person after 1 whole year of this. I recorded the convo on my phone and made her aware I was recording as I don't trust her. We speak for about 10 minutes, but in a nutshell, I tell her that we may not like each other, but we are neighbors and we have to live next to each other. And I would like to just go about our business and lives. She agrees, surprisingly. Couple months pass with no issues. Then we come to yesterday, which is the crown jewel of insanity. My boyfriend went outside to talk to his mom, and I get a text from my neighbor saying we are not to come outside when she is outside as we are spying on her. Ironic considering all her cameras pointed at me, and if it continues she will take this further. Also in the text she threatened to call code enforcement because I detailed my van with a buffer and it was loud. I promptly told her to F off and she will not dictate when we can or cannot come outside, and if she keeps screwing with me, I will file for a restraining order. Not as eventful as other stories on this subreddit, but I thought I would share. And guys, if you ever had any run-ins with insane neighbors, please don't forget to share your story on r/ripe stories on Reddit or in the comments section. However, if you want your story read in a video, I would suggest to post it on Reddit because it is quite difficult to read from YouTube comments. And an update to the previous story. It is titled "Evil Neighbor Got Foreclosed On, Entire Street Had a Block Party." Just letting you all know, karma is real and does indeed exist. The neighbor who pointed cameras in my windows called me and my boyfriend's stupid gaze all the time, called police on me and other neighbors as well as code enforcement weekly, is officially gone. The house sold quick and the new owners are super awesome. When she left we had a literal porch-to-porch party, socially distanced and outside of course. Well guys, and even though that is a very brief update, it is indeed a happy update. And indeed, sometimes just karma comes back to bite you in the rear. And the next one is titled "Repeatedly block in my car in my private parking? Good luck finding and getting your car out." Not sure if this is petty or pro, but it was certainly creative and extremely funny at the time, so I will try here. I live in an apartment building which has end-to-end parking for 2 spaces per apartment, and access to the parking levels 1 to 5 are done via a locked automatic roller door, which people can only get through if they have a remote for it, or sneak through behind someone else. I only have a single car and sometimes I let my friends park in the space in front of my car if they give me notice, so I generally park at the back of the double space, plus it is easier for my neighbors who have 2 cars. Earlier this year, a random car began parking in front of mine on Friday afternoons, meaning I could not go out with my car on Friday nights. Annoying, but not the biggest issue when you live super close to the city. This continued nearly every week over about 5 weeks when I didn't park my car at the front of the bay, which I began doing, but at times I planned to leave the space free for friends coming over or whatever. The car appeared again. I made repeated attempts to stop this behavior by leaving notes, which escalated into leaving printouts of a photo of the car with the license plate clearly visible and an explanation that if it happened again I would press charges and or have the vehicle towed. Well, it happened again, and this time it was still there Saturday afternoon when I had been planning on going away with a group of my mates. My guess is someone went out on Friday, got drunk and decided to pick up the car later, not concerning themselves with the inconvenience it caused anyone else. It clearly had not moved, as my aggressive note telling them to F off was still there, sitting limply under their wiper blades. I figured enough was enough, it was time to have the vehicle towed, so I called building management and eventually calling a towing company who refused to help because the space was on the 3rd floor and they cannot get any trucks up to that level because of the height and space restrictions. Ordinarily, most people would be pretty much screwed at this point, and I will admit I briefly considered sitting on the hood of the car until the jackass came to pick it up whilst sending my mates on their way without me, but they would have had to work out a new arrangement for transport as one car wouldn't have cut it. Fortunately for me, however, my parents only live 30 minutes away and have a garage where I work on one of my cars that is getting at the tail end of a minor restoration. One of the things I use pretty often is a set of vehicle position jacks to jam my project car right up against the wall of the garage to minimize the space it takes up. For anyone that doesn't know, vehicle positioning jacks are basically devices that slot under each wheel and then lift the car up on hydraulics so you can freewheel it in any direction. Whilst I hadn't originally gone to retrieve them when I had to take my project car off them, a bright idea came to my head. None of my mates minded spending an extra hour to screw someone over that had interfered with us, so we grabbed the jacks and went back, propped the car up and wheeled it out. 6 guys can easily move around a small hatchback, so we pushed across the level slowly and carefully to an area where there isn't parking but is a load supporting pillar with space enough for a car behind in it in a little section of the garage where it isn't lit and is completely out of the way. Typically there's a guy on my level that parks a motorbike there, but he isn't meant to, and I doubt he minded. We dumped it between the pillar and the wall with the nose pointing towards the wall. I took back my angry note, the jacks, and we left to enjoy our weekend. When he came back Monday afternoon after the long weekend, the car was still there, which was no real surprise considering there was only about a foot of space for movement between the pillar and car, and another foot or so between the car and the wall. From the fact the front wheels had changed, we are guessing they did try to get it out. Unsuccessfully, it eventually went later in the week, though I'm not exactly sure how they managed it. I never saw that car again. As requested, my crappy MS Paint graphic made in GIMP because a way to break the mold to explain the positioning, and now with animations. And unfortunately guys, I cannot show you the animation, but here you can see the pillar and the wall, and as far as I understood, they essentially put this guy's car between the wall and the pillar, so it is almost impossible to get out. For the record, I'm pretty sure we spun it around half a dozen times whilst moving it, because none of my mates had ever seen the ease of which vehicle positioning jacks move cars around. I probably could have done it myself since I know how they tend to move, but 2 novices could easily have done it extremely easily. Plus there's something weirdly amusing about dancing a car around as it slides in directions it was never meant to, and that you only see in car crash dashcam videos from Russia. For anyone who doesn't understand how parking in my building works, it is like this: 2 car spaces per apartment, but 1 car goes in front of each other. Guys, here you can see another picture of how the parking normally works. I hope that clears up why I couldn't just move my car out and leave his where it was. Info edit number 3, I am Australian for anyone who missed my username. Edit number 4, a few people have asked why I don't simply park at the front of my spaces. I don't always drive to work because I live close enough so my car stays home. My mates will need to go into the city every so often, usually happens randomly like once a week, so if I leave my car at the front of the bay, I would either need to go home to move it or tell my mates that they are out of luck. I would rather not take away a benefit to my friends, or because the occasional jackass and single persistent jackass wants to freeload too. At least my mates buy me beer or pay for my gas occasionally, plus the person parking in my space illegally is the one doing something wrong and not me. Edit number 5, police also will not help unless the vehicle has been there long enough to be considered abandoned. However, cite that I am within my right to have the vehicle moved or towed, which, as I have pointed out, won't happen because of the difficulty unless I pay a ridiculous removal fee, which is greater than the impound charge. And the next one is titled, Am I the A-hole? I locked my entire alley up. Last year I bought a house in my area, really wonderful old red brick. When I was in the process of buying it, I discovered that the purchase also includes the entirety of the alley. I asked the realtor if this was true and they said yes. I went to the courthouse to double check and confirmed it. So I buy the house, I meet some of the neighbors and I made a joke about charging them rent to use my alley. They flipped out. I was not looking at starting a war, so I just kind of let it blow over, and then winter arrived and the neighbors started demanding I have the alley plowed every time it snowed, because I own the alley and I am responsible for it. One of them told me they would sue me if they slipped and fell in the alley. I don't believe they were joking. I paid a friend $25 a month to plow the alley every time it shows to keep them happy, but during this time I was also talking with some people at the courthouse. As soon as the snow started to melt in my area, I got a hold of some local contractors and had them build a gate at the entrance of the alley that I keep locked. I have also posted trespass warning signs on the gate. It is all completely legal, I made sure of it before I did this. Now the neighbors are just livid, basically everyone is calling me an a-hole, including my family. One final note, I am only here to settle a debate with my sister. Regardless if I am an a-hole or not, the alley is not going to be opened up again. You don't threaten me with a good time. Edit. Alright, that's enough. I spent the last 10 hours responding to commenters. I would like to thank everyone who privately messaged me so they don't get in trouble with the mods. I loved reading all of your nasty messages. For anyone who doesn't know any better, the alley has 2 garages that open to it. I would have figured most of you would realize an alley may have a garage, I guess not. I did not intentionally leave that fact out, but after everyone started howling about it, I decided to wait until I was done here to edit the main post. I will update if I ever get sued into oblivion. Lots of love. And a user in the comments said, not the a-hole, someone threatened to sue you over a perceived potential hazard, you blocked access to the hazard, that is a reasonable response, problem solved, enjoy your alley. And another user said, yep, every single person who complains about it, I would be pointing at exactly who threatened to sue for liability, because it is, as they put it, your property. And another person said, ESH, I think you set the tone for your relationship with your neighbors in your first interaction by joking about being the alley landlord and that you were going to charge them rent to use your alley. I think most people would agree that that kind of joke was probably a poor choice given you were literally just meeting them. They really had no idea if you were joking but actually mean it. And frankly, it's not weird to be a bit put off by someone who jokes about charging you rent within minutes of meeting you. Plus, some people just have a demeanor/tone/personality that makes it hard to tell when they are joking. And while I know tone is hard to interpret in writing, I kind of get the impression that you might be one of those people. I think it is quite likely they did think that you were serious and that you joking about it was actually just you informing them. Like the landlord who does some routine or necessary maintenance to your apartment and jokes about raising your rent and then raises your rent. So if these people thought you were not joking, they probably have the attitude of, oh well, if it is his alley, then he can take care of it himself. I would be curious to know what the neighbors did for plowing before you bought the house, and then you got one a-hole who makes the "I will sue you" threat. So you decide to block off access to all the neighbors and cut off access to people's garages. I mean, yes, you have the legal right to do so, but exactly how do you think this is going to play out? You have literally made all of your neighbors hate you. How pleasant of a living experience are you going to have now? You seem to be one of those people that doesn't care what other people think as long as you are right, and that is all fine and dandy, but I'm not sure what you are gaining here from being right. You would probably answer, not get sued, which is true, but again, you kind of set that aggressive tone yourself from the very start. And while you may have the legal right to block the access, I think it is pretty foolish for you to think that you cannot be sued for access rights unless the people at the courthouse were property lawyers. You just seem kind of smug about the whole thing, but you just basically made yourself a pariah. Whether that is right or wrong does not matter, it is the reality, and now you have a new house that is surrounded by people who think you are an a-hole. Honestly, you move into the neighborhood, immediately start joking about being the alley landlord, and charging people rent. Your response to one angry person threatening to sue is to screw over all your neighbors, and you literally blocked access to people's garages. You don't want to sell them access rights, you have made sure it is perfectly legal. You kind of sound like a jerk. I guess if being right and it is perfectly legal are more important to you than being glared at every time you step out your door and being bad-mouthed to everyone, then I guess you have nothing to be worried about. And Ripe Stars, I am curious what you think about this story. Do you agree with the commenter that OP is kind of a jerk, or do you think that OP is doing the right thing here? Let us know about what you think in the comments. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.